Syntakt doesn't have a compressor, unfortunately, but here are a few ways that you can actually create your own sidechain compressor effect using the effects block. What's up everyone, I'm Mech, and in this series of tutorials we're going to have a look at creative and interesting ways to use Syntakt's effects block. Another great way of using the effects block is as a pseudo sidechain compressor. We can actually use the amp envelope, which is by default already set to an inverted attack hold decay envelope, to create the effect of sidechain compression. An inverted attack hold decay envelope basically means that instead of modulating the volume from 0 volume upwards, it modulates the volume from whatever we've set here to 0. So with the attack time to 0, the volume starts at 0 when a note is triggered on the effects track for as long as the note's duration, and when it's released it goes into the decay stage and it will go back to the setting that we've set here. And this is the depth of modulation that we have. So this is how far down it goes if we set it to envelope depth of 100. In this case, or 110 rather, this will modulate it to 0 and then back to the setting that we've set here. If we set it to, let's say 60 or 55 rather, then it will modulate the volume down to 55, right, half, and then back to 110. So that's where the depth comes in. If we set the attack time a bit higher, then it starts at a high volume. We set this to 110 again, then goes to 0 for the note's duration in the sequencer, and then back to the initial state. So this we can use to create a cool sidechain compression effect. So I have this synth here, and I have a kick here, and I want a nice pumping effect. This synth is routed to the effects block, and I put notes into the sequencer of the effects track with grid recording mode. And now I'm going to increase the depth of modulation. And there we go. And we can determine the release time of the compressor, so to speak, by increasing the decay time. We can also change the note length of these triggers to something very short, and then use the decay time. So this way it's super short attack time. And we can also increase the attack time. We have to ease in a bit more, and then set the length of the note a bit higher. Or we can simply use a specific hold time. In combination with the attack and decay, you can really dial in some nice pumping effect. And of course this is quite exaggerated. I can set the envelope depth a bit more subtle. It's basically your threshold, you could say. So that's one way. There's another way. With that we can create a different curve for the pumping effect, and simply by using an LFO. And you can also do this on specific tracks if you want, but yeah, then you're giving up an LFO on a specific track. Something I mostly try to avoid because I really like to use my LFOs for other stuff. But we can set this to amp volume. We can then set this to exponential wave. We're going to set the trigger mode to 1. So it's a one-shot mode. At every note it triggers this LFO once. I'm going to make sure that LFO.T is on, because this sets if these triggers will trigger the LFO or not. And we can of course set a speed. The cool thing is that we can lock it to the BPM, so it's really part of whatever BPM we are playing at, 142 this time. Now here comes the cool trick, is that I'm actually going to set this to negative. So it's same thing with the inverted amp envelope. It's going to start at the initial volume that we've set and then modulate it down, and then logarithmically increase it back to the initial state. This gives us a pretty cool pumping effect with a different curve. I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit. We can change the speed. And you can also change the depth like this. Basically becomes a bit more soft this way. So, different curve. And of course the depth becomes your threshold. Now another interesting parameter for this is of course the drive parameter. So set the destination to drive. Then we can set this to the max, for instance, and every time the kick hits, the drive will go down. So similar to amplitude modulation, but it's, yeah, going from high drive to low drive, or low drive to high drive rather. As you can hear. So with that, it's very overdriven, right? So now it's a pretty cool effect. So the kick stays clean. We're not routing the kick to the drive anyway, but everything on the kick stays clean. And you get a bit of a pumping effect as well. Pretty cool, right? Beside this and the upcoming techniques in this video, you can learn many additional sound design and groove techniques through my courses and cheat sheets. For example, the Mastering Syntakt course bundle will go through all the steps to create a groove from scratch into a full track on Syntakt. The course covers all Syntakt's functions and how to use them effectively and creatively. For more information and free content like cheat sheets, head over to davemech.live/shop and become a Syntakt master. Now we can of course combine these two effects by utilizing the LFO.T parameter and the amp.T parameter. Let's use 3 triggers and let's set the FX track to a polymeter of 12 steps. And we're going to turn off LFO.T and amp.T. Now if I increase this, we don't get any pumping whatsoever. But if I press and hold this trigger and turn this on, we get pumping on that trigger, right? So let's try a different rhythm. I'm gonna, on this trigger, I'm gonna add the LFO. There you go. And then here we're gonna trigger the amp envelope again. Then also change to something very short and a bit less heavy. So you can really create some interesting movement with that. Place this here. Yeah, this is nice, cool. So, there you go. Of course, it's a bit exaggerated. We make this a bit more subtle. You can create some nice pumping effect that way. Cool. I hope these tricks inspire you to use the effects block in creative ways. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and click the bell to be notified when a new video in this effects block series is released. Cheers.